people didn't react so well to. So, Ted, we will get to UFC and Josh Norman becoming a Redskin and some other things like the politics of New York. But tell us a little bit about our guest.
Oh, so we now welcome David Manel to the show. David writes for the Pirates site, Buck's Dugout, and has been a great guest for us before. Chris, thanks for being on. Excuse me. Dave, thanks for being on with us again.
Hey guys, how you doing? I hate to cut off to come in before you guys get to talk about the politics in New York. I'd love to hear that.
It's some dirty stuff in New York, Dave. So, hey, Dave, before we even get started talking Pirates, and before we even get to the senior circuit, is there a bigger surprise than Matt Latos and his 0.47 ERA and 0.60 WHIP for the White Sox?
I can't think of one right off the top of my head. No, there isn't. And as we bridge to the Pirates, it's interesting because there was talk that the Pirates may have been interested in him at some point during off season, where they were really looking for starting pitching, and there were the issue with him, or at least what we heard was there was some concern maybe about him in the clubhouse. But I think he's always been a really good pitcher, and I guess it is surprising the numbers right now. It's certainly early, but I don't think there's probably a bigger surprise.
Gotcha. Hey, I do have another question, and it's about, and everyone on the show knows I'm a Mets homer, so NL East, but I got to ask you, can Bryce Harper take the Nationals to the World Series?
Jeez, he is arguably the best player in baseball right now. I don't know. I haven't looked at their roster up and down enough to know. They have Murphy. Sure, he's the type of player. Once you get to the playoffs, it's kind of a crapshoot. So I guess I imagine he could. Yeah. I'd say they're in it. The problem is the Cubs are so overwhelmingly good this year. They're going to be so overwhelming overall that it's just I have a hard time seeing past them in the National League at this point.
Yeah, and we were talking a little bit earlier in the show. We each think that the Cubs will now win less than 81 games because of the start that they've had and the expectations. So, but you
wish
talked
that
about
they were true.
Well, and we'll get to it in a minute. But is it too soon for anyone to really worry about their team? For example, the Diamondbacks were 4-8, and now they're just a game and a half, and the Rockies are a half game back of the Dodgers. We all know the Rockies aren't going to continue playing that well. They shouldn't anyway. Too soon for anybody to worry about their team?
Right. That's interesting because, that's what we do at the beginning of the season. I think that's part of the fun of it is seeing what you have on the field for the first time. And so you make more out of the early season performance than it deserves. If you go 4-8, if you go through a slow stretch in games 80 through 90, those are blips on a long schedule. They're just data points, arbitrary data points, so you don't worry about them too much. So, yeah, certainly we make too much of early season performance. But, when it comes to teams, because I concentrate so much on the Pirates, there were concerns about the team coming in, certain weaknesses. So you look at those early on, and I don't think you can make final conclusions about what kind of team they're going to be, but you can see if you can start to look at those weaknesses and put them under a microscope a little bit. But overall, you can't make too much out of it. But the Cubs, we knew they have a great offense, and they do. We knew Arrieta could pitch, and he is, and they're just tough up and down. So I don't certainly they won't keep this pace, and we may be making too much of that, but they're going to be good. They're going to be tough.
Right, yeah, and you mentioned Arrieta, really an awful pitcher who got lucky on Thursday, but I'm joking, of course. How impressed are you by what he's doing right now based on, he had some injury issues earlier in his career. He's not the youngest guy. He's 28, I think. But, and with Baltimore, he had an over 5 ERA when he came to the Cubs. How impressed are you by what he's been able to do since he's come over to Chicago?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I think he kind of even fell off my radar when from Baltimore to Chicago. I don't think I really paid attention to him, and there he was, especially last year. It's an incredible turnaround. He's a guy that is overflowing with confidence. He has a unique workout approach that I'm sure will maybe this whole this mind body unique yoga workout routine he has may catch on with others. It's an incredible transformation, and he is a dominant pitcher right now. We saw it firsthand in the wild card game last year. He's just, and now we're seeing it early this year, and we saw it in the last year. I mean, it's an incredible turnaround. It's an incredible story, and and it looks kind of, the stuff looks sustainable, and that's the thing. It'll be tough for a couple of years.
Maybe just a reminder that we are with David Manel of Buck's Dugout. This is Todd. And one last note about Arrieta before we move on a little bit. I just heard it would have been the other day because that's when he threw the no-hitter, that was on the third anniversary of a terrible start he had for the Orioles, and they sent him down to the minors. So I'm sure that was kind of a nice little bit of a razzmatazz for him. It's like, wow, 3 years ago I was in the minors, and here I am doing this. Finally,
I mean, did you even really pay attention to him kind of in Baltimore? He was just kind of a guy, right? I mean, I don't remember him necessarily having a high ceiling type of guy. He was just kind of a guy who pitched, and I think at the time Baltimore really didn't have a lot of, pitchers that were of note.
Right. Oh.
And he was just kind of a guy.
3 years ago, he wasn't on my radar at all. Yeah. So you definitely can move on from humble beginnings into the stratosphere like he has. But now we'll actually talk about the stratosphere of the National League, the Central. How worried are you about the Cubs' fast start, or does it really matter because of the wild cards?
Well, I mean, I think it really matters because the Pirates, especially if you just look at the Pirates, they want to win a division because they had trouble getting out of the wild card the last 2 seasons. And last year, they had such a great season and came up a little short because the Cardinals somehow outpaced them. So it's really important to them to win the division. I don't think, looking at the two rosters, just kind of looking them up and down, the eye test, that the Pirates are going to be able to win the division. And so a fast start, you can't have this distance build up between you and the Cubs, because the Cubs, I think, are going to be a consistently good team this year. They're going to be a high 90-win team this year. And the Pirates, I'm not so sure. They have significant worries, enough to worry about, weaknesses at as you get past the first 2 pitchers in the starting rotation at the front end of the bullpen, that I think there's enough to worry about there. And so any ground you give up, this is what happened to them last year. They had a tough April. They caught fire. They gained ground, but that April ended up hurting them. So these games count as much as the ones later on. So the distance they lose now, it is worrisome if you're a Pirates fan, for sure.
And talking about having a tough April and slow starts, are you concerned at all that McCutchen's off to another slow start?
No. I mean, he did the same thing last year.
Right.
When he catches fire, he's still a top player in the league. He's popping balls up right now. He does this when he struggles a little bit. He starts to kind of come underneath a little bit. He'll be fine. He's still, if you look at his OPS, he's still a productive player. Or you look at his batting line, he's still a productive player. Right. But he'll be fine. He's a good, consistent. He hasn't had an off year, so I don't expect that he will. He'll eventually come around.
Hey Dave, this is Ted. I just wanted to going off script a little bit here. As you know, I'm a Mets fan, and I want to thank you personally for Neil Walker, allowing him to come over.
Yeah, that was a heck of a trade, especially in Pittsburgh, because as you know, he was a hometown guy, and he was beloved in the city, and certainly beloved by the press. Really liked him. He's missed in the clubhouse because he was the guy that every day, when you walked into that clubhouse, he would have a scrum around him. He was a spokesman for the team. He was, by all appearances, a great teammate, good in the community. And just now for the team, the Pirates lost some power with him. He was losing some range. The Pirates needed a a pitcher. Neese is, I think he'll be okay. So I think both teams maybe did all right in that trade. So I guess you're welcome.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if Neil didn't come over, and and this is a great deal, it's a 1 year, $10.5 million deal that we currently have right now, because we've got some talent coming up there. My question for you is, are you, at all surprised or shocked that he made this transition so smoothly with his new team?
No. I think he is what he is. I don't think the team would matter. He's got a skill set, and it really doesn't matter, I think, where it plays out. I don't think – and he's just a complete – from what I saw of him, he's just a complete professional, so it doesn't matter where he does it. And I think maybe in a way it's a little bit of a relief for him to be, even though going to New York's a challenge, maybe being out of Pittsburgh where he's got attention. He had so much attention placed on him every single day. He was such a story. He was the guy that everybody knew and everybody wanted to talk to. So maybe that might even have helped him a little bit. Isn't the guy they have coming up, by the way, isn't he Pittsburgh too? Wasn't he acquired in a trade? I forget his name right now, but I thought the guy you're waiting on also came through.
I think I think you're correct. His name escapes me right now, but I believe that's why we only have the short deal so far right now with Neil Walker, because it's about a year away.
Right, and it was I think it was the Ike Davis deal, if I remember correctly, but I'm not exactly sure. Correct.
Hey, I hate to talk about the Mets because you're talking about the Pirates, but I want to talk about an ex-Met, Jonathan Neese.
Yes.
He said some things as he was leaving the Mets, but how important is Jonathan Neese to the Pirates?
Oh, he's important because the rotation is a big question mark. They have Lariano, Cole, and then who knows? Neese was important. He needs to be a steady 3 or 4 guy. The hope is that Ray Searage can do his work on him and have him throw even further inside, induce more ground balls, and play into the Pirates' kind of defensive philosophy. But it's absolutely vital that what did he go last night? Maybe 5 2/3. They're having, they need 6 innings from him. He has to have a good year, not a lot of blowouts, because they can't have him. Their bullpen in the front end especially is significant question marks, and then the guys after him, you never know what Jeff Locke's going to do, and Nicasio has been turned into a starter, and you don't know how that's going to work out, and so it's really important that he is a steady, that he works into that rotation and maybe even has kind of an A.J. Burnett, Volquez kind of comes to Pittsburgh and becomes a top-end kind of starter. So he's really important, especially with now some injury questions with Lariano. So, yeah, he's really important. Gotcha.
And, the Pirates, they seem to be one of the more stable teams in baseball. Can they sustain success for the next 5 to 10 years?
That's the big question mark, whether their window, so to speak, is closing. Re-signing or extending Polanco. They're going to have a good outfield for the next few years. They're going to have one of the best outfields in baseball. They'll be okay there. They have 2 nice starting pitchers that will be coming up soon. I think they can sustain a 80 to 90 win seasons for the next 3 or 4 years if you look at the kind of what they have in the minors and some of in their outfield. I don't know if they're going to have enough, though, especially with the Cubs getting online, with the Milwaukee getting smarter. They're going to have a smarter GM. St. Louis will always be tough. I think they're looking at competing for wild cards, and I think they can do it for the next few years, but I don't think they're ever going to be a team that you look going into the season maybe and say, well, this is the Pirates division to lose. But I think they'll be competitive for a while. But you're just given the market realities, they're just going to have to be so smart, the guys they sign, and hope they come in and get these reclamation projects. That's been the That's been what they've been doing, and they've been successful with it. But so I think, yeah, they'll be competitive. I don't think they'll drop off the face of the earth. That's kind of the question. I don't think that will happen.
And speaking of smart, Buster Olney had talked earlier this week about having a fourth outfielder possibly for different alignments and cores. And you actually had an article on Buck's Dugout on Thursday just about Pirates positional play when other people are at bat. Do you feel like sabermetric, and that article, by the way, Neil Huntington talks outfield positioning and situational hitting is really fantastic. People should check that out, Buck's Dugout. But do you feel like sabermetrics is just going to become more and more, even more important in Major League Baseball as far as, like, for instance, Chris Davis hits 62% of his balls in the air. Do you see, like, just really strange alignments happening in the next 20 years of baseball?
Yeah, I mean, as long as it keeps working, it will definitely become part of it. I mean, it's hard when more information it's never bad, and it certainly has helped the Pirates. I'm right now, currently I'm in Detroit at my parents' place, and the Tigers of all organizations, when they were recently in town, I was listening to Brad Ausmus talk, and it's like listening to the Pirates talk 3 or 4 years ago. The Tigers are finally a team that really kind of lagged behind and did things very traditionally are absorbing sabermetric principles. I think you have to. I think it's a smarter way to tactically approach the game. And the Pirates, they've learned from launch angles. That was the point. Neil Huntington, they're moving their outfield in because they have ground ball pitchers, and I guess the physics of it are pitchers that induce ground balls also induce lower launch angles on fly balls, which means fly balls go shallower. So you want to move your outfield in to get to balls sooner or catch more balls. And if you have a fast outfield, you can get back on balls that might go over your head. And they, by their data, they've already prevented some extra bases, got some extra outs. I mean, this stuff, the margins are really important, especially for small market teams. So I think this will just carry on. They will continue to look for new inefficiencies. The Pirates have all their players hooked up to these biogenesis. They're measuring heart rates and how players, they're working on the physical side of players to know, to try to measure fatigue and prevent injuries. They're going under every possible stone that they can, looking for every little piece of information they can, and I think that will just continue until there's kind of some reason to say it's not successful. It seems to be, So yeah, I think you'll just see more and more of this, and I think it makes it interesting in some ways. I like it.
Oh yeah, absolutely does, and it also makes me think when I'm listening to other people talk about positional fielding that there's no way I'm smart enough to figure it out. And I'm glad I'm just enjoying the game instead of having to think about how it's played.
Yeah.
So
I like it because it reminds me. It's like chess, though. You find a tactic, a strategy, and then you deploy it in the season, and you see if it works. And I like that aspect of it. I couldn't figure it out. I wouldn't want to look at the data and try to figure it out. But it is fun to see when you look out at the field and you say, "Oh my gosh, the Pirates outfield is noticeably closer to the infield. Why are they doing that? I wonder if it's going to work." And so I enjoy that part of it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun to see. Sometimes I'm just thinking when there's a different alignment against my favorite team is the Dodgers, and the Mariners are like 1B, and they run especially with the infield with the third baseman. I'm like, just learn to bunt, dude. Just bunt the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, get on base.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean that's the thing. I mean that's the big. At some point, hitters will have to punch back, and that's the interesting thing to watch for. I mean, there will be value. We valued for so long guys who could, maybe they struck out a bunch. We figured strikeouts were an out as much as a ground out, so who cares about strikeouts if you can hit home runs? So the emphasis was on power. But now with defense alignments the way they are, pull hitters are not as valuable. Guys that can move the ball around, spray the ball, those type of hitters will be the punchback. So offensively, guys who can control the bat, bunt, break shifts, they'll become more valuable, and I imagine that will evolve over time. And so that kind of ebb and flow of it, I think, is also interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a couple more questions. What's your biggest worry about this season for the Pirates, and what gives you the most confidence that the Pirates can once again make the playoffs?
I think the biggest worry is that you have Jeff Locke, who is not a bad fifth starter, but he's off to a tough start, and you have Juan Nicasio. And I don't know how dependable Locke is. Locke has been pitching. His ERA has been deceiving through his career because his FIP and other numbers are up. So you just wonder how sustainable he is. You have Juan Nicasio in the fourth starter. He's a converted long reliever. He has 2 pitches. I don't know if he's really reliable there. And then you have Nice, who we talked about earlier. And Lariano, you hope he can stay healthy for the whole season. The starting and maybe Ryan Vogelsong they plug in somewhere along the line. Who's, you don't want to count too much on him. So the starting staff is a big concern. The front end of the bullpen, where Lobstein and now Vogelsong is there right now. Natali Feliz, who he's doing okay, and Arcadius Caminero in the bullpen. These are guys that came to the Pirates with inflated ERAs, came off really poor seasons, and they seem to have found their way with the Pirates, but you don't know if that's going to last. So the pitching is a concern. What is not a concern is that they will have a high on-base percentage, and their offense will score runs. It won't be through home runs. It'll just be through stuffing guys on base and bringing guys home that way. They're leading the league in on-base percentage. They will score runs that way. So their offense will be good. Their defense will be good. We talked about Walker earlier. There's an upgrade at second with Harrison. So they'll field the ball. They'll get guys on base. They're fast. They'll score runs. The concern is, can they hold on to leads? Because the pitching is a concern. Everything's a concern with the pitching except the front 2 starters and the back end of the bullpen. Everything in between is a worry. So that's the optimism and concern. And so I think that works out to like 85, 86 wins, to be honest.
Hey, David, looking for a couple answers here. The biggest surprise of the season, but what's the biggest positive surprise of the season so far, and the biggest negative surprise to you?
The biggest positive would be, I think, John Jaso has shown that you can learn first base after being a catcher after the Pedro Alvarez disaster last year at first.
Right.
So Jaso is the biggest surprise. The biggest disappointment, I think the things that we thought were going to be a disappointment have been. So I don't know if it's a disappointment yet, just that it may be disappointing that, it's disappointing that the front end of the bullpen, the long relievers have been having a tough time. I mean, you kind of hoped maybe they would they'd be a little bit stronger than you thought they might be in that area.
Great. Sad for the bullpen, but great answer. Thanks so much for being on. Where can our listeners find you, sir?
I'm I write at Buck's Dugout, cover the team when they're at home. So I do more writing when they play home games, and also at David Manel on Twitter. And that's it. That's it.
It was terrific having you on. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a good time. Talk to you.
It was a good time indeed.
Yeah.
And yes, it was.
I thought my co-hosts were all dead momentarily. It's like, oh my God, April is not over yet.
No. Ted and I both
is.
did the same thing. We actually muted our mics so that the sound quality would be better. So,
yes,
incredible.
But yeah, again, thanks to David Manel for being on from Buck's Dugout. He's been on. I don't know if it's been 3 times. I know it's been at least a couple of times. He's always great, so we really appreciate him being on. Absolutely. So we have